Welcome to the podcast today. Welcome to the Insane Gorillas podcast. Today we're talking about the movie Berserk, which was Ty's choice of the week. One of his all-time favorite animes. It's inspired so many different things. Metal Gear Solid's storyline is basically just a rip-off of the Berserk storyline.
I wouldn't say that.
I'd say it.
I wouldn't
I'd
disclaim.
say it. Hey, I'd say it. It's inspired a lot of characters from Dark Souls. It's inspired a lot of stuff. It's probably one of the. What would you say, Ty? Would you say it's underrated or overrated? What would I say? Underrated. I've never heard of
Um,
this. I've heard a lot of like Naruto and everything. I've never heard of Berserk until I met you.
yeah. Berserk. Well, obviously I'm biased here because Berserk is my favorite story of all time, especially the manga. The anime, I think, it's they're good. There are positives and negatives of each one, except for the 2016 one, which if you haven't seen, Matt, is atrocious. But I wouldn't say it's underrated. I'd say it's probably the best manga ever written, in my opinion. And I've read a lot of manga. I'd say it's the best manga ever written, or at least my favorite. So I don't think it's underrated. I do think it could be a lot more popular though. Um, and I think it's not as accessible as a lot of other manga and anime because it's a lot more mature. And it's kind of harder to get people into that. Not to get people into mature stuff, but to get people into like manga in general in America, especially if they're an older person, which is the demographic of this, story. It's a lot harder. But yeah.
Um, I know we've talked about Berserk a lot between just you and me. Could you give like a little bit of like a synopsis on kind of the characters and what the storyline kind of follows overall?
Yeah. So Berserk's story, I guess. Well, pretty much, I guess anyone who's read it will know. But you kind of start off the story in the middle, at least in the manga. You start in the middle, then the whole there's like this really long flashback that centers around the dynamic between these three characters. And it's kind of provides a really lengthy, well fleshed out backstory and story within itself that sets up for the rest of the story. So it starts in the middle, it goes to the beginning, and then it goes to like essentially the future. It skips over where the story starts over again. So it's like it's told non-linearly, but the most popular arc of Berserk is the Golden Age arc, which, like I said, is the arc that centers. It's like the flashback. It's a long flashback, and it it basically it's about a lot of things, but it's really the core of it is about the dynamic between Guts, Griffith, and Casca, which are like, in my opinion, some of the best written characters of all time, especially Guts. I think in terms of character complexity, um, at least within Berserk, I would probably put Guts at the top as the best, and then Griffith at the bottom, like Golden Age Griffith, not at the bottom, but under Guts. Then I'd put Casca at the very bottom of the trio. But I mean, I think that Casca's a good character. I think she kind of gets slept on a little bit too much, but I still like her as a character. And the dynamic between them is basically what it's about. Yeah.
Yeah, I really like actually the relationship between Casca and Guts because I've read like
Oh,
only a
sorry,
couple
Matt.
of.
I can't quite hear you. Hold on. I'm gonna have to fix my headphones
Okay.
real quick.
Um. So what is it?
What is it? Oh,
I can hear myself now. Um. What is it? The character of Guts is known for carrying like a giant sword. I gotta try to
okay. I had a
remind
goof there. Can you hear
myself.
me?
Yeah. So I really like the relationship between Guts and is it Kakasa or
No,
it's
Casca.
Casca. I
Yeah.
really like the relationship between the two because this is like one of the only times I've seen Guts. I've read a couple of the mangas. I've read maybe like 5 or 6 of the books, and then I kind of just fell off the wagon on it. Uh,
Mm,
but I've never seen Guts kind of happy, and he seems kind of happy when he's with Casca. And
yeah.
I like that. It's a lot different. It's different for that character because he's always so serious and
Mm,
brooding. He's like Clint Eastwood in a western.
right. Well, actually, yeah, that's kind of a good comparison because Berserk, well, Guts as a character is essentially was inspired by a lot of 80s tropes, like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Rutger Hauer,
Steven Seagal.
and a lot of yeah. Well, I don't know as much Steven Seagal. I certainly hope not, but um, Guts is kind of like an amalgamation of that. So he kind of starts off like as you said, you read like the first 6 books or so, right?
Yep.
It's like in the first three books is the Black Swordsman arc, which is probably the most controversial arc in the whole story because it's like it kind of tricks you, I guess. It kind of tricks you into thinking that Guts is like this one-dimensional, angry, edgy guy, and then it kind of yeets your ass because it gives you this whole extensive story about the complexity of his character. Um, and of course, that's just the manga. If we're talking about the movies, right? Because that's what we watched. Well, that's what we watched this week. I actually came through watching this movie trilogy, not liking it as much as I did the first time. Because I realized that it cut out so much of the story. Like you said, you like Guts and Casca's relationship, right?
Yeah, that was one of the
Well,
major things in it too.
yeah. Well, they cut out, believe it or not, they cut out a lot of Guts and Casca's relationship. They cut out a lot of Guts and Griffith's relationship. They focus a lot on the dark aspects of Berserk, like the dark stuff that it's known for, and they didn't really put any emphasis on the somber, quiet, beautiful moments of contemplation and a lot of that stuff they cut out. Like they cut out Guts's entire like story, They not his whole story, but they cut out his whole like childhood, which was a huge part of the story.
Yeah.
Did you make it that far in the manga?
Well, it talks about it a little bit. I didn't really get too in depth into it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I know that I forget the character's name. It's like the little fairy dude that's like has no gender.
Oh, Puck.
Puck. Yeah, it's like a hockey puck. That's
Mm-hmm.
how I remember it. So the Puck's relationship with the character of Guts, that's kind of like, how far did I get? It's been a while. It's like I've read them like right after you recommended me them like a year ago, and then I stopped,
Mm-hmm.
and then I kind of fell off. I need to start reading it again because it's actually really good. It's just I don't
Yeah.
read manga a lot. I could watch an anime and
Mm-hmm.
I'll be fine. It's just I got to sit down and focus when watching or reading a manga, and it's just a lot to take in. There's so many storylines in mangas that I kind of get a little lost and confused or dazed and confused with the storyline.
Yeah, I mean it's a different experience from watching an anime. There are advantages of watching an anime, but like I don't know. See, as these movies, right? For an example, I think as movies, I like them. As a movie trilogy, I like them. But as a Berserk fan, I actually really dislike them. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, I have the same thing with a lot of books. I like the book a lot more than the movie. I can see where you're coming from there. Because there's so much you can put in a book compared to a movie that it kind of just... I just recommend reading a book over a movie, but the movie's good. Just sit down and watch it, enjoy it for it being a movie, but don't judge the book from the movie because usually the book has a lot more to it. It's got a lot more story. It's not missing so much. It's a lot more put together usually than a movie.
Well, it's like a matter of like if something is necessary to be adapted. I
Yeah.
think people kind of think that everything needs to be adapted into something else, whether it be a movie or a video game or whatever. And I think that's kind of the thing about Berserk, right? Is it's like it works manga as a medium to its like maximum extent. Like of course you probably I mean you're not a manga reader, so you probably don't know about manga like Vinland Saga, Monster, Vagabond, Kingdom, all the like Oyasumi Pun Pun, all these really great stories that work. They work with manga, like they feel distinctly like manga or like a comic, not, and it's not like it doesn't feel like they need to be adapted into a movie or a TV show or something like that, you know? And Berserk is a case, historically speaking, where an anime has always missed the mark because it's trying to either replicate the manga perfectly or it's trying to change something. This is usually the case. It's trying to change something for cinematic purposes, which it misses out on, right? So, like, you have the first anime that came out in 1997, which is the best. If we're talking about adaptations of Berserk in like cinematic form, then the 1997 TV show is definitely the way to go. It's definitely the best one, and it includes the most of the story. And then you have the movies, right, which have great animation. For the most part, there's some really bad CG, but they have great animation, like especially facial animation, and they really nail some scenes from the story. But then they kind of fall flat in cutting out like, you know, like 40%, 40 to 50% of the story. And then you have something like Berserk 2017 or Berserk 2016, which is like, I think probably one of the worst anime ever created. Like it is a travesty. It is honestly terrible. Have you seen anything about that, Matt? Have you seen any clips or
No,
anything from the
I've just
2016,
heard that
2017
I've
anime?
heard from you that it's absolutely terrible. That's all the context I have for it. I've never watched it, so I don't have my own opinion on it. So, I can take your opinion right now, but I've never watched it, so I I know nothing about it. This is the only Berserk I've actually watched. I've read some of the books and then I've watched these movies. So, I didn't have too much context on the character of
Oh,
Guts before doing it.
you cut out for a second. Hold on,
Oh,
I'm trying to fix my
okay.
stuff again. It's kind of embarrassing, but
Yeah. Are you able to hear me now at all? Just chat here. Chat heard me, so let's see. Let's see if he comes back. Um, hey, real quick, I just want to say next week we will not be live on Sunday on Twitch, but we will be premiering pre-recorded um like Insane Gorillas podcast on our YouTube channel. So make sure to go to youtube.com/Insane Gorillas with two Z's, no space, Insane Gorillas. It's exactly like our Twitch name, but without the Insane Gorillas. Just go check that out. It's also linked down below on the podcast on our Twitch channel, so make sure to go check that out. We'll be premiering it. We will not be live, but you can still interact with each other on the YouTube as it premieres. So, Ty, are you back? I heard you. Let's see if
oh yeah, can you hear me? Can you hear
yeah
me? We good?
yeah.
Okay,
I
so did
just
you hear what I said?
uh no I didn't.
Ah, how much of it was cut out?
Pretty much all of it.
Oh god damn it.
I
Okay,
thought you
this
were
is
off, so
okay.
I was telling the chat that we'll be premiering next week. We won't be on Twitch next week at 2 p.m., but we will premiere a pre-recorded podcast on YouTube. So
Okay. So yeah, basically what I was saying was I was talking about the different adaptations of Berserk where basically they all fall short somewhere very important, you know. They each of them some of them fall short completely, some of them fall short in several areas. So like the old anime has really poor animation, but it covers a lot more of the story, and it has really good music. And then the movies that we just watched, they have good animation for a lot of the parts, but they cut out most of like the important moments in the story. And then you have Berserk 2016, which is like the worst anime ever created, possibly. It's very bad. Um, so that's basically what I was saying.
okay, so let's try to get on the topic of this one. What caught me off guard on this one originally was Guts did not have his famous sword, but that kind of comes into the story a little later. Because when you start the manga off, Guts just has a sword. He's already beat down and destroyed, kind of. He's broken in a way. Uh,
Yeah.
but as you go along, you start to realize what's happening. And that's kind of where what I had been thinking originally. I was like, "There's his sword is just way too small at the beginning." I'm just like, that's not
Mm-hmm.
exactly how they describe it. If I can pull it up, let me see.
It's the
Guts.
Dragon Slayer.
Yeah, it's I just like the description of it. It's like it's pretty funny actually.
It was massive, thick, too heavy to be called a sword. It was more like a massive lump of iron.
Yeah. Here, let me see. Here it is. That thing was way too big to call a sword. Let me see. Is it quoting? That thing was way too big to call a sword. Too big, too thick, too heavy, and too rough. It was more like a
Yeah,
large hunk of iron. That's one of my
which is true.
yeah. In the movie, it's not nearly as big as it is. It's more
Well, yeah, it's a different sword.
yeah,
It's a different
which I
sword.
didn't realize at first, but then as you watch the story and if you know a little bit of the manga, you start to get this picture of, oh, this makes a lot more sense, and then suddenly you realize that this is a prequel instead of just in the original storyline of the anime. And
Right.
that kind of caught me off guard at the start, but I kind of like how they did it because I like seeing Guts kind of happy and kind of a little more like enjoying life, but then as you start the manga, he just seems kind of depressed and he seems like he's just only all about getting revenge and stuff. And
Right.
also,
Well, that.
I did want to say that
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
you said this movie was going to be like really violent and like too violent for me that it would be hard to watch. It was not. I was
Did you watch
expecting
all
worse.
three?
Yeah, I watched all three. It was like
And you saw the
casually.
eclipse,
Yeah, it was like casually watching a movie.
and you weren't affected by the
I've
eclipse.
seen some shit. I've seen some stuff. I've seen all the Saw movies. You can't.
Yeah, but I'm talking about like thematically. I'm not talking about like. I mean, sure,
Oh, I
what's
thought you
going
were
on
gonna
is,
say like
you know.
brutal, like disgusting,
No,
stuff like
no,
that.
no.
Oh, more
I mean,
story
it's
wise.
disgusting, but it's emotionally. Yeah, it's like
Yeah,
emotionally disgusting. You
yeah.
know,
I found that
it's
with a couple moments. Yeah, I'd say that.
yeah, and that's something I kind of like about Guts. He's my favorite character of all time. But something I like about Guts is that, or about Berserk in general, is that it kind of portrays the idea that good people or otherwise good people or people that we kind of think of in this I'm trying to think how to explain it. Like good people can do bad things, bad people can do good things, it's kind of about the nature of morality a little bit. Like you kind of think everything's fine and dandy. You're like, oh, okay, yeah, I mean, I get it. Guts is a warrior. He kills people, so what, right? And then you get to that scene where he stabs Adonis, the little kid. He sees him
Yeah,
just a little bit, and he runs him through with the sword. They actually ruined that scene in the anime, believe it or not. Like, it's. I mean, they didn't ruin it, right? But they took out the most vital part of that scene, um, which is when Guts kills the kid, right? He looks at the kid, and the kid looks at him, and Guts sees himself as this monster. He sees himself as a murderer, and he sees himself kind of as he sees the himself in the kid because Guts murdered his own father, you know. So here he is murdering this child's father and murdering the child himself. He sees himself reflected in it, and he kind of it kind of has this moment.
yeah. That scene
Um,
could have had a
and
little more
that's like the thing I'm
context.
talking about.
That scene could have had a little more
Yeah.
context. I get that. In that scene, I just thought that like killing a child would be absolutely horrible, and that's why he was thinking that. But now that you say that, it kind of makes a little more sense of how haunted he is by that fact, and it just adds a little more um, to the story. It just adds a little more to the character of Guts. So, yeah, that I'm glad you said that because I was a little lost because he felt like he had seen a ghost in that one scene, and yeah, I just didn't feel like his
Okay.
reaction
I
was.
heard you say about how killing a child would be something, and then I didn't hear the rest.
Well, can you hear me now? Am I breaking up or anything?
Yeah, I can hear you now. I can hear. No, no, no. I can hear you now.
Okay, I said that I thought originally that he was just haunted by the fact that he killed the child, and not that it had brought back his past in some sort of way. So that's kind of the gist of what I said.
Hmm.
It makes it a little more dramatic and adds to the character of Guts.
Yeah.
I don't think they
Um,
should have cut that out.
yeah. They took out a lot of his backstory. No, they shouldn't have cut that out. That's the thing I'm talking about. They cut out a lot of. They also cut out like a lot of the sexual stuff, which is a big part of Berserk.
Which
Um,
is funny because there is a
like
lot
they
of
cut
sexual
out.
stuff in this already.
Um, oh yeah, there is, but there's a lot more even in the manga. Like for example, Guts was. I don't know if you made it this far, but Guts was sexually assaulted um, as a kid, and he was sold out by his father. And he killed his father. And but being a kid, being sexually assaulted, we see how that has repercussions throughout his life. How it makes him feel about things, about intimacy and
He
stuff
doesn't
like
want
that, and
attachments.
it cuts out a lot of the. Yeah, yeah, yeah. He doesn't. That's the thing. See, it connects directly to his view on life. Because it's just like he feels like he's just a person who's existing. You know, he feels like he doesn't really have a point or a goal in existence, and you have someone like Griffith who's very ambitious, who has a very who has these grand ideas of things they want to do, and um, it's the Band of the Hawk is something that Guts became attached to, and it's like when Griffith says to Guts, or not to Guts, but when he's giving that speech where he's talking about someone who's his equal, someone who he considers to be a friend, it's like the Guts. It's like he even says it in the movie. I think it's a little bit more vague in the manga, but in the movie he literally says that like he can't have Griffith looking down on him like that. Well, no, actually he does say that in the manga, but he says he can't have Griffith. Griffith's the only one he can't be subservient to eternally. You know.
Yeah. I absolutely hated the character of Griffith. I like Guts a lot more. He seems a lot more like a normal person. I've never seen someone
Yeah.
so ambitious as Griffith that it just seems super unnatural, and I just don't like his character. And that was even before
Well.
the ending where he turns and stuff. I just don't like his character. It's
Mm.
really unnatural. It's just too much ambition for one person to have.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, I guess. He's kind of meant to be an exaggeration of like the idea of someone who's ambitious, right? But the thing is that Griffith isn't just cold. They in the movies they portray him as just a cold person who just wants things and gets things, which he does. Like he does certainly feel that way and think that way. But they cut out, for example, the scene where Griffith sells out his body to the. Do you remember the battle for Doldre?
Yeah.
Do you remember that night, dude? The guy who was like, who said he wanted Griffith spared.
Is it the one with the pitchfork? Oh no, it's not the one that he's battling, right? It's the one that's in charge of the Blue Eagles. Is that the one?
No, no. Well, he's the guy. He's the old guy.
Oh,
He's the one
yeah.
that like
Is it
the
one?
old dude in the bath with the dudes.
Yeah. The one that he just kills straight up, just stabs him in the eye, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah,
that
yeah,
guy.
yeah. Okay, so really messed up about that scene is like that is such an important part of Griffith's character development, right? Because in the movie, it doesn't really focus on Griffith as a character as much. For example, okay, so that guy is like a powerful noble, right? He's wealthy. So Griffith, he sleeps with this man. He sells his body to this guy to get money, to get funds, for the Band of the Hawks, so that he can advance his ambition further. And that leads into this scene where Casca, like I said, this is another one of those moments, those soft moments. Casca she sees Griffith, like taking a bath, and he's harming himself. He's ripping his skin with his nails, and he's thinking to himself that like how everything that he does causes people to die, and it causes suffering to the people that put their faith in him, you know. So it's this really powerful scene where Griffith, you see this person who's really confident and charismatic and bold, um, like they at their weakness, you know, they're weak. It shows him as a weak, not weak. Well, maybe not weak is the way to explain it, but it's a moment of weakness. It shows Griffith self-harming and contemplating um, that, and it also kind of he kind of explains his thought process too a little bit, right? Because to him, it's like, what about everyone who's already died? You know, it's like the only way I can make their deaths worth anything is by continuing to win and continuing to advance.
Thanks for the
And the
follow.
movie cuts that out. The movie cuts that out completely. The movie cuts that out completely, and I really did not like that.
Yeah, that would have definitely have helped the character of Griffith. Thanks for hosting the stream. Um, yeah, that would have definitely have helped that character. Griffith just seems too ambitious, but that would have brought him back to like a more human, nistic feeling. I think it would have helped his character a lot if they had. But I see where they're going. If they had left everything in there, are you hearing me? By the way, I just want to make sure.
Yeah, I'm hearing you. No, I'm hearing you.
Yeah, I just want to make sure before I go off and just keep talking. But it would have
Mhm.
helped his character a lot to make it just feel a little more human, and I think that's where it kind
Mhm.
of falls off on the in the story is that it makes him feel not human how ambitious he is, and it definitely takes away from his character. I think that would, but I see where they're
Mhm.
going. If they had added all the storyline of the manga for the Golden Age, it would have been multiple movies. It would probably would have been. How many movies would you think it would have been if they had added everything from that storyline? It would have been
Let
maybe
me
like a whole
think.
TV series of
Um,
movies that were probably like an hour or two long.
yeah, no, it'd have to be like the Golden Age in itself is like its own saga. You know, it's like it's its own story within itself. So, like for example, even well, if we take the 25 episode anime, right, that from 1997, which covers most of the Golden Age, that's 25 episodes. And they're 20 some minutes each. So if you condense that into an hour long episode, right? I feel like you can make like a 10. I feel like you can make a 10 episode hour long um, episode series, like an HBO series or something like that, to cover the entirety of this arc. But you know that kind of reminds me of another thing too. They cut out a lot of Guts and Griffith's friendship. Now, I'll just say right off the bat, I disagree with you that Griffith feels inhuman. I think, well, I definitely think that they didn't do a good job of portraying it completely, the more human, more vulnerable side of him. But I think that there are people who are very ambitious to this extent, and there are people that are as, I guess, psychopathic and you know, and morally corrupt, or I'm trying to think of how to explain it. Like there are people who are very ambitious, and there are people who are psychopathic, and there are people who are willing to overlook and manipulate others for their own gain, you know. And I think Griffith can be compared to someone like, say, Alexander the Great, you know, who was a real person who died at 33 but had one of the biggest empires in the world and who conquered everything, you know. I think that there are people that are like that, and I think that it manifests in different ways. I definitely think that people are more complex, obviously, than just the idea of gaining and winning and manipulating things. I mean, that's obviously not. Like Griffith. The thing that people misunderstand is that Griffith actually does feel the weight of his consequence of his actions. He feels the consequences of his actions, you know, and he can feel things for people. So I actually think that Griffith is a very well written example of a character who of someone who is ambitious, someone who is charismatic, someone who's confident, but you know, is also complex and has weaknesses, just like any person. I think it's one of the best examples. I think Griffith is one of the best examples of that. For example, I had a friend, someone I was really close with, who, and I think a lot of people can relate to this, but I had a friend who I was really close with who's very charismatic and very ambitious and is able to use his confidence and charisma to get places in life, and he has. I have a friend, or I guess I had a friend who's like that. And as and I can feel in my heart, I guess, that to him, even though he sees me as a friend, he sees me as someone less than, you know? So that dynamic between Griffith and Guts, I think, is applicable to a lot of different relationships, you know? Um, and it's an exaggeration, yeah, to some extent it is an exaggeration, but I really don't think it makes Griffith feel any less human. Um, I think that I think it's the fact that he is a human being and does feel these things but conceals them a little bit more than others is a perfect example of, people who are more sorry.
Conscientious.
People are more conscientious.
Conscientious. Yeah, it's
Yes.
a hard word.
People who are more aware.
More aware.
People
Yeah.
who are more aware of their ability and their confidence. I don't know. Sorry, that was a tirade, a rant, but
It's okay.
that's just my personal opinion.
Uh, yeah. Another thing that kind of catches me about these movies is also what's the character that's against like the group Griffith joins? Who's the one riding the horse with the skull mask on and kind of saves
Oh, you're
what's
talking about
his
Skull
name?
Knight.
Skull Knight. Okay,
Skull
is
Knight,
that just
yeah.
his name? It's very simple.
Well, he there's a theory, right? Well, if you plan on reading Berserk, I don't want to spoil you on it because there's a connection between who Skull Knight really is. Like there's a whole thing.
Okay, I wouldn't spoil it. I might read it at some point, maybe over the
Okay,
summer.
yeah.
I have a lot of free time then. But
Mm.
he reminded me so much of the Witcher 3. They have the Wild Hunt, the leader of the Wild Hunt.
Oh, the Wraiths, right?
Yeah,
Or whatever they're called. Yeah.
yeah. He reminded me so much of that one character that it's just he looks exactly the same. Have you
Hmm.
seen? Have you seen him? That character.
I've seen them a little bit because I started playing. The Witcher 3, and I got to the point where it introduced them. And I remember thinking that exact same thing, basically. Like, yeah, this kind of reminds me of Skull Knight a little bit. Um, except Skull Knight's kind of, I don't know. Skull Knight's a good guy, I guess.
Yeah,
I don't remember if they were
that's
bad or whatever, but
well, they're bad. Yeah, they're the ones that go through villages, like kind of hurting people. Here, let me throw this up on the stream. Here, go live. Do it quick. This is the character we're talking about. The one that leads the Wild Hunt. He looks exactly like the character of who is it? He looks exactly like I don't know if this is the character from the one, but it looks a lot similar to him. This is what kind of Ghost Knight looks like, or Skull Knight looks like. So,
Skull Knight.
Yeah, not Ghost Knight. But they look very similar.
Ghost Knight.
That's exactly what I was thinking the entire time. Is these characters just look so similar to each other. It's just kept getting me off track on the movie. But
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if there was some inspiration taken there, because Berserk is a very, very influential fantasy series. But also, it's like you got to kind of be wary because everyone. I swear to God, I am annoyed with the Berserk fan base because they think that every single thing in existence is a fucking Berserk reference. Like it is insane. It is insane. You could take a circular object with a face, right? And they'll be like, "That's it. That's a Berserk reference. That's Berserk." And it's like, maybe, just maybe, okay, faces and circles are kind of commonly related because heads are typically represented as spheres or circles. You know, it's like does everything have to be a Berserk reference? No, I don't think it does.
Do they
Okay,
think that
I'm sorry. This,
everyone? Do they think that everyone with a big sword is just a Guts character, like
yes,
Aragorn from the Lord of the
absolutely.
Rings with his giant
No,
sword? It's
absolutely.
Guts. It's
Yes, they do. Now there are some which like absolutely are. Like there are some which are
yeah.
undoubtedly like inspired by Guts, like Cloud from Final Fantasy VII, or Artorias from Dark Souls. Um, the creator of Dark Souls and Bloodborne, Hidetaka Miyazaki, has said flat out that Berserk is referenced a lot in his stories. I mean, games, stories.
They're the
And
same.
they're the same thing. Not really, but
Well, a
but
game is used to tell a story usually.
yeah, yeah. Um, I mean, something that I don't know. See, like for example, there is a reference to Berserk in Doom Eternal. There's like an actual reference to Berserk in Doom Eternal, and it's like a cute little thing, And then but then like I saw this just the other day, right? Someone posted like the picture of like the Doom Eternal poster, and they're like, "Oh, you see this? Look, there's a red sun. All right, okay. This right here is a Berserk reference." And it's like, "Shut the fuck up." It's like actually shut the fuck up. It's not a Berserk reference, you fucking idiot.
Maybe that's just what the sun looks like on Mars. Maybe that's just.
Right, it's like it's almost as if an eclipse is a common symbol for like a dramatic event. Isn't that kind of crazy? Wow. You know,
Has to be
but
Berserk. Berserk reference.
it must be. Yeah. But there are certain things that are Berserk references, but I mean, it's like, I don't know. It's so fucking. It's so. If I get into it, I'll get so mad because it's like, I don't know. But, yeah, there's like a lot of shit. Like, for example, the Golden Age, like these movies cover like so little of the story. Like, not only of the story of the Golden Age arc, but like the story of Berserk as a whole. Like, this is like maybe like 1/5, 1/6 of the whole story. If we go by arcs, it's exactly 1/5. But if we go by how much actual content, then it's a lot less. Like if we go by how much actual content these movies covered, it's like so little.
Well,
But
it's kind of like the Spark Notes version of the manga, maybe. Is that kind of.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's skipping a lot, but you kind of get like a little bit of a gist of the character. I think what I'd say about this movie is that it's a good way of like introducing people to Berserk. It's a good
Yeah.
introduction to the character of Guts. It kind of gives you a
Mm,
little bit of backstory, but not too much, because then you'll. It's trying to inspire you to read the manga, and the
right. As
manga,
well, it's made for fans.
yeah,
So it's like it kind of expects you to already know some things. You know what I'm saying? But it's those things that you already know as a manga reader when you watch through that people who haven't seen the manga can't appreciate because it's not there. So like for me, the second movie, I hated it. I hated. Okay, I didn't hate it, but I liked it the least because, okay, I shit you not, Matt. I want you to tell me how fucking amazing you think this is. Okay, when I explain it to you. All right. So that scene where remember where Guts is doing like a 1v1 battle with the Blue Rhino Knights leader guy,
yeah. Isn't that the one with the?
the dude with the fucking
Is that the one with the pitchfork?
the
No, not the pike.
no, 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 he's the guy. Fuck, I don't even remember what weapon he used,
I thought the blue
but he
rhino.
had like a
I
he
thought
was the
blue.
guy.
I thought the blue rhino knight was the
Go
blonde
ahead.
guy. I thought it was the blonde guy that he
Okay, it's
assassinated.
not the blonde guy. It's the bald guy. It's the
Oh,
bald guy.
okay.
The bald general guy. I forget his fucking name. I forget his name. I know the other guy's name is Genin, but I don't know that one guy's name. I always forget it. It's Boscone. Boscone is his name. That's what it is. Yeah. Um. Anyway, so when Guts is fighting Boscone, right? I shit you fucking not. Okay. He's Guts' sword is broken, right? And he's knocked off his horse, and he's like, oh shit, what am I gonna do, right? Like he's fucked basically. And then you know how in the movie he just like kills him? He just gets angry and kills him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so you know who I'm talking about, right?
Yeah. I'm just trying to remember it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think, trying to picture the scene in my head. Um,
Like it's dusty. There's lots of sand everywhere. Guts is battling the dude one on one, and like they're battling whatever, and then Guts just gets angry and kills him. It's not very memorable in the movie. Like in the movie, it's not memorable. That's I can kind of see why you'd forget it. But
the only
in that
scene,
scene,
the only scene I really remember is the scene between Griffith and Guts, because I think that's well done. I think it's pretty well done compared to when we watched
like the
Metropolis,
one where they're talking.
where they're fighting. The one-on-one duel between Griffith and
Oh,
Guts at the end of that one.
yeah.
Uh, that,
Yeah.
that compared to when we watched Metropolis and talked about how it just randomly starts snowing in the city for no reason. This
Yeah.
makes a little more sense for why there's snow, and it just adds a lot more to it. But one problem I did
Yeah.
have was you can't see anyone's steps up to the mountain, but you can see where they've been walking in circles in their little group. But you can't see like how they
Oh
got up
yeah.
to the mountain. You can't see any steps or footprints in the snow, but they just happen to appear up
Well,
there.
it could have been snowing over. It could have been snowing over the footsteps
It was blowing,
already.
so
You
it
know.
could have possibly, but it didn't look like there were any
Yeah.
snowdrifts. So I
Well, okay. So that scene is one of my favorite scenes ever. So I want to get to that, but I have to finish my thought on this because it's so badass. Like it's the probably the most badass moment in this whole arc. And basically, Guts is fighting that guy, General Boscone, right? And fucking Nosferatu Zod sees that Guts is about to die and fucking like pulls his arm back all the way across. He's watching the battle from like a fucking like miles away, right? And he just sees it and he fucking pulls his goddamn sword and he just fucking throws it like miles. He fucking launches it onto the battlefield and Guts picks it up and then fucking slays Boscone. They removed that. They made a conscious fucking decision to remove that. They removed Nosferatu Zod throwing a fucking sword miles across the battlefield so Guts could take it and then fucking kill Boscone. They removed that shit. I'm so mad about that.
that's also I really like the character of
I
Nosferatu
might have cut
Zod.
off. You probably can't hear
No,
me.
I heard.
Oh
I
god.
heard you. I
Hold
heard
on.
you. I heard you. You're good. But I really like Nosferatu Zod. I just really like it. Like his character, like how they're kind of like he all he wants
Okay.
to do is fight Guts. Can you hear me? Or are you struggling to hear
Yeah, I
me?
can hear you. Did you hear
I
what
can
I
hear
said?
you. Yeah, I heard you.
Okay.
But I really like that character. I just think it's just a cool character to have. I don't know why I like him. I like how he looks. He kind of looks
Who?
old. Nosferatu Zod.
Oh yeah, dude.
I like
Yeah.
how he looks.
Yeah.
He looks sort of like a demon, but he's like got green skin. He looks like he's been around for ages. But I thought he'd be
Right.
older than
Yeah,
300
he
years
has.
old. I thought he'd be
Well,
older.
he is older than 300 years old. Like it's kind of the thought. It's theorized that he's older than 300 years. Um,
But doesn't he
that's just kind
mention
of like
he does
he basically exists as a legend.
he definitely like says that he's like 380 years old or something to Skull Knight.
No. He says he a couple times he talks about the length of time in between he's battled someone. So he'll say like never in my or is like it's been 300 years since a human has harmed me this much or some shit like that.
Oh, that might
Or
be
he'll be
what I'm
like
thinking.
um yeah. He'll be like he'll talk with Skull Knight and he'll be like, "Oh, well it's been so many years, you know, it's been like 500 years or whatever the fuck it is." Like he never really blatantly says how old he is. He does mention. So I mean, obviously, if he says, "Oh, it's been 300 years since this," then we know he's at least 300 years old. You know, but he's. I think he's probably somewhere upwards of 1,000, maybe a little bit more. Skull Knight's about 1,000 years old too. So some people think that their origin stories are kind of
Linked.
connected, but I really don't think that.
Does it ever touch on their stories at all in the Berserk manga? Hello? Can you hear me? Can you hear
I
me?
wish this would stop. Yeah, I can
Okay.
hear you. I'm so sorry. I wish my headphones stopped turning off. But did you hear what I said?
No, I did not hear you that time.
Okay, so basically I said if he mentions like a time period of 300 years to Skull Knight, we know he's at least 300 years old, basically. But I think he's somewhere more towards 1,000 or something like that.
Okay, you cut you cut out again. Uh,
Oh god damn
like
it!
right at
All
the end,
right,
you said
okay. What about now?
you said like somewhere around 1,000, and then you kind of just stopped. I don't know if did you finish your thought?
Oh, that's what I meant.
You finished your
Yeah,
thought.
that
You
was
just
my thought.
stopped.
I just
Okay.
yeah.
Sometimes it's hard to tell whether you cut out or not, but so I
It's
just
okay.
making sure that you did it. But uh, okay. I'm trying to think of what I want to talk about. Overall, I thought I really like the movies, but
Mhm.
I'm not accustomed to Guts. I don't know the whole storyline like you. Where would you
Yeah.
where would do you really like this as like an introduction, or do you think that this is a
Mm.
good movie on Berserk by Berserk standards?
I I think that the third movie as a Berserk adaptation is good. I think the second movie as a Berserk adaptation is god awful. I think the first movie as a Berserk adaptation is decent. That's what I think. I
What?
think
Why do you have such a big problem with the second one? Is it just because that one
they
scene, or is it just
mishandle. No, no, no. They mishandle all of these moments. They focus on the wrong parts of all of the moments in the story. They cut out. That's the one they cut out the most from. They cut out the scene where Griffith fucking kills the queen of the entire kingdom, uh, be, because she was a part of the assassination plot. They cut off the scene where Guts and Griffiths are talking after Griffith orders him to kill someone. Remember after Guts kills Adonis and all them? After that, he talks with or wait, no, wrong part. I'm mixing up my scenes. Sorry, they cut out a different scene after Griffith was attempted to be poisoned in the ballroom originally. That's why after that happened. Basically, there was this whole plot about the Queen of Midland trying to kill Griffith. They removed this entirely, but the Queen of Midland tried to kill Griffith. She tried to poison him because she knows Griffith is the one that killed um, her lover, which was Adonis's dad, the guy that Guts assassinated. Okay, so she tries to poison Griffith. Griffith finds out. He infiltrates her like secret order. Um, Basically fakes his own assassination to give himself an alibi. Then kills the queen, and then after that, he talks with Guts, and it's just this it's that's just one example, but they have this Guts and Griffith have this interaction where you kind of see once again you see Griffith's vulnerability, you see his complexity because Guts assassinates this innocent not an innocent person, but he assassinates the guy that Griffith used to set up this attack, right? So Guts kills him, and then Griffith is like, he's talking to Guts, and he's like, "Oh, am I a bad person?" You know, he's like, I feel like I'm a dirty person or something like that." Or no, he asks Guts, he's like, "Am I a dirty person?" Or whatever. And it's just like one of those, like I said, it cuts out all these moments of quiet beauty. It cuts them out completely. Um, it's also really interesting because Griffith paid the guy, right? He paid the guy to do this to help fake his assassination so he had an alibi, right? But then he kills the guy anyway because he can't have any loose ends, right? So he kills him, right? After he gets his money. So the guy has the money and he's killed. And then Guts is like, well, he's not going to be needing this. So Guts tries to take his money. And then Griffith is like, no, leave it with him. He earned it. It's just this really interesting moment. It's like, so he's going to have the money anyway. Even though he's dead, he earned it. And it's like such an interesting idea. I don't know. They cut out so fucking much. They cut out so much. They cut out all the character development between all the other members of the Band of the Hawk. Believe it or not, in the manga, all the other members of the Band of the Hawk, like Pippin, Judo, Corcus, Rickard, all of those guys are really more fleshed out. You know, they're really well fleshed out. They cut out the scene where they cut out Guts and Casca's sex scene happens in the third movie, which I'm not keen on either. But it's they cut out so much, Matt, that it makes me upset. It makes me very upset because the stuff that they cut out of the second movie is some of the best stuff in the entire series that they cut out, and I really don't know why. And probably because of time, but it's like I really think the things they cut out in the second movie were the things that they should have added in. The things they should have kept in are the things that they removed, is what I feel like. And I feel like it makes the movie weaker for it.
I think the only reason I like the second one is because of the battle between Griffith and Guts. But everything else seems a little bit slower. It seems more like a Lord of the Rings movie, but nothing against Lord of the Rings. I know, like, it seems like it's all focused on just big battles.
Mm-hmm.
While it's not focused too much on like the storyline between Guts and Griffith, but it just at the end it just seems like that fight between Guts and Griffith isn't as I don't know what the word is. It doesn't seem like it was I can't think of the word. I'm always like this. But it doesn't seem deserved. It doesn't seem deserved. That's the word.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I agree with you. No, I totally agree with you. That's a thing I noticed actually is that someone made a write up about this on on Reddit. I was reading about this, and someone said that unlike the manga, right? Unlike the manga, the movies are cashing emotional checks that they can't pay out. You know? That's the thing. When you cut out these little moments of character development, of story, when you cut out these little things, they all contribute to the greater part of the story, you know? They all contribute to these climactic, dramatic moments. So when you get to these moments and you've cut out the little things that make this relationship feel genuine, okay, then you're kind of forcing a scene, which is what I feel like it treads on, you know? Actually, would you mind if I read that post? Because I actually have it pulled up because I wanted to
feel free.
Okay, so let me see. I have it pulled up right here. It was on a post called so it's on a post. Why are the movies looked down upon by Berserk fans? Because by and large, this adaptation is a poor adaptation. And so, Walter Bennett, he's actually.
You're cutting out a lot
on the Berserk community because he's been a fan for like.
You're cutting out a lot. You might want to repeat a little.
Oh, wait, can you hear me now? Is it all right?
Yeah. It just for some reason it was just skipping so much right then. I don't think it was anything with my internet, so I don't know why. Okay. Maybe it was just your microphone. Could you repeat that, please? I don't think anyone caught that.
Yeah. Okay, I was saying this write-up is by Walter, who's a really well-known Berserk fan on SkullKnight.net. He started a Berserk forum that's like really, really old. It's been going on for more than 20 years. So he's been a fan for a long time. So someone said, this is just the shortened version, but they said, I know they did take out some scenes, but did it really take away from the overall message? And then Walter said, yes, I think it did. Ultimately, I don't think they captured what makes Berserk Berserk. It's a perfunctory adaptation of certain scenes of the Golden Age, helmed by people who I don't think truly understood where the heart of the story was. The movies charge forward, ignoring small moments of reflection, scenes that make this series unique, so that by the time of the eclipse, the movie was writing emotional checks it couldn't cash with the scant amount of attention it had afforded its cast. The adherence to runtime being the boss of things leads to some awkward scenarios. For example, Zod's entire sequence in the first movie lasts 10 minutes. It's painfully brief, despite the obvious effort that went into the visual atmosphere of the scene. The brevity problem also robs characters of any sense of depth. Judo, Pippin, Corcus, and Rickert in particular suffer especially in this, with nearly all of their scenes cut or truncated, so that when the slaughter happens, it's not nearly the same impact as in the manga. It's a thud instead of a devastating blow. There are also more fundamental problems, like the Bonfire of Dreams, one of Miura's most beautiful metaphors, cast by the wayside in favor of things like worthless character cameo additions. And of course, who can forget the extended sex scene? A few of the other bigger offenders include, but are not limited to, ruining Guts' origin story with a chaotic LSD nightmare, robbing Judo of his final words, needlessly confirming Geyserich to be Skull Knight in a clumsy way that only an amateur team who doesn't understand the series could have managed, writing out Griffith's assassination plot, and with it, a crucial scene of development between he and Guts. I could go on, and I have. So he basically, that's what I'm trying to say, is that they cut out the most important development, especially in the second movie.
Yeah. I agree with a lot of what he said, especially how they nowadays they'll just put a team that doesn't really care onto like a comic book movie or something just to rake in that money. So, for example,
Mm-hmm.
like I'm a big fan of Ghost Rider, and when they did like Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance and the Nicolas Cage ones, I really don't like that. It was just a cash grab, is what I think. But I'm like a big fan of Ghost Rider, and I think the first Ghost Rider does a little better than the second one, but they're both terrible because they don't have people that like the character Ghost Rider writing these films. It's the same thing
Yeah.
with a lot of some of the Marvel movies, like Captain Marvel kind of falls flat, I think, just because they don't. It's just an interesting character to put in this whole Marvel Cinematic Universe because she's like unstoppable, but she's also like the people that wrote that movie weren't big fans of Captain Marvel. They just the
Right.
MCU just wanted to introduce a female, powerful female into the MCU, and
Yeah, and there's
that
no
was what they wanted.
passion. There's no
Yeah,
passion.
and that's probably one of my most disliked movies, just because now I have no problem against empowering females with it, but I just think that when you're just trying to get a cash grab or trying to just make this one character a female lead, I think that it
Uh,
falls flat because they're just focusing on
yeah.
making a female lead. So I think
And they're not really putting any complexity into it, really, because they're basically trying to provide you with an idea that you never thought didn't exist. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
It's like by trying to make a copycat cookie cutter example of a powerful woman character as compared to something like a Sarah Connor, something as good as that. As compared, you take away something. You lose the complexity, you lose the relatability of that character. And it just feels like it feels forced. It feels not only unreal, not only exaggerated, but also completely unrelatable.
yeah. Same thing with another comic book movie. The X-Men movies, the newer ones, where they make Mystique
Yeah.
like the main female lead. Jennifer Lawrence. I don't think it's all Jennifer Lawrence's fault, but it kind of falls flat in that sense too, because I don't think Fox just wanted money from it. So they like,
Hmm.
oh, let's just make Mystique the main character, the leader of the X-Men, and maybe that'll bring more women to the theaters to watch these X-Men movies. It's
Right.
it
These
doesn't
these
work.
companies don't care. Like let's just be honest.
Yeah,
These companies do not care. Like people will have their own opinions on this whole thing, right? This whole debacle. But when it comes down to it, these companies, they do not care. They are not empowering, they're pandering, you know. They're creating these things to say, "Look, no, we care about what you believe in. Come give us your money and we'll show you. We'll give you 2 hours of meaningless nothing. We'll give you little whispers but and really you're not going to get if you're not going to get any kind of presentation of like that from a big company like Disney, because it doesn't really have any artistic value, in my opinion, very little. And I'm not saying that because it's a superhero movie. I have no problem with superhero movies having artistic merit. I think it's very possible, and I think that it's very doable, and I think it has happened. Even in some of the Marvel
uh,
movies, I think it's really good about that. Like especially Iron
Guardians.
Man.
I think Guardians of the
I
Galaxy. I think that's one of the more
Yeah, yeah,
artsy
no, that one
ones.
too.
But like they've created this format for all these movies, so they all follow the same thing. Uh,
Yeah.
and that's where they fall flat. Is they're all following a same story. Well, the original Iron Man had no direction, real life direction. They weren't planning on making this big universe during that first Iron Man film. They just wanted to create toys. Actually,
Right.
they thought Iron Man would sell toys, and I'm one of the people that bought those toys because Iron Man was really cool at that time. And then they decided, oh, this is selling, and we're making a lot of money off of this. Let's start making more movies. And then I think
Right.
after Avengers, they started creating like a format for all these movies where, okay, this is how we're gonna do it, and then this is how it's gonna go. We'll make money. We, it'll work. Just trust me. Is kind of what they're like
Right.
talking about. Um, Now I feel
Yeah, and
like
they do the same thing with Star Wars too.
yeah, definitely with Star Wars. I think the whole. Did you hear also that Disney is they just created that Galaxy's Edge, and they're gonna change it. It's based on like the Force Awakens in the new trilogy. So now they're gonna go back and change it to make it
Uh-huh.
more like the Mandalorian because people actually enjoy the spaghetti western Mandalorian more than the
Huh.
newer movies. So they're gonna spend a lot of money repurposing the park and changing it to fit the Mandalorian age instead of the newer movies because not many people like them as much. So I think that's pretty funny. They just
Yeah, the
spent
newer movies are not. I think that I don't know. I think Disney gets its hands on something and then they ruin everything good about it because they don't like good movies. Good movies or not okay, well not all good movies. You know, they say like all art is political, which I'm not sure if I believe in that or not. But I do think that 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 walking on and talking about like kind of more not necessarily not family friendly, but you know, complex talking about complex themes and ideas in movies is what makes them so appealing, you know. And when Disney gets a hold of a thing, or when a big company like this gets a hold of a thing, like a property, they're not going to make something that really means anything. They're going to make something that makes you go, wow, dude, wow, Star Wars, wow, you know. Which I guess if you're into that, that's okay. That's perfectly fine. But that's not what I seek from movies, you know. Um, I'm not trying to sound pretentious here. I mean, I like being entertained. I do. But for me, something that's entertaining is also something that has like thematic value, you know? So that's why I can find something that's if something is so bad that it's funny, then I find that entertaining and that's good to me. But if I have something like Berserk, which is very heavy on its themes, that is what makes it entertaining for me, you know. So something like a lot of the Marvel movies I watch, I'm just like I don't like this. This is annoying me, you know. It's not fun for me. So I guess that's you know kind of off topic, but
well,
it goes to show how
uh,
passion can have an
yeah.
effect on it. You
Let's
know.
bring it back to Berserk real quick. I don't think this was a major cash grab. While it was sort of like, hey, we can make some money off of this, I feel like they had some people behind the scenes actually caring for it. Like caring for it.
Yeah,
Maybe the
I
people
no,
that
I
were working
agree.
on the second one weren't as big of fans and like really cared about it. Just they cared about their paycheck more than the film. But I think they did bring it back in the end with the part three. Like part one's really good. It seems well
Mm,
paced and everything, and part three seems really well paced. It's the middle one that seems a bit slow. Like they're just focusing on the battles more, like the action. It's just like they're thinking like, oh, people don't care about the story. They care about the action. While me, for instance, I really care about the story more than like the action in general. I like The Godfather,
mm,
like all these mafia movies that are like there's some of them are slower paced and don't focus really on the action as much as the characters, the connection between the characters and the relationship
yeah,
between characters. I think that
character driven things. Yeah.
yeah, I think that they could find a middle ground between action and character development. But they went for let's just go all action on the second one.
Oh, you're cutting out a little bit.
Uh, am I
You were
now?
you saying that they could find a good were you saying that they could
Like a
find a good
middle
balance
ground.
between
Yeah,
action and
yeah.
yeah. Okay, yeah, yeah. I heard that. I
Like the
heard that.
Lord of the Rings
Um
does this very well. They focus on characters like relationships and developing these characters while also having these big planned out choreographed battles with a lot of special effects and stuff, but they use
yeah.
the battles to push the characters forward in the story.
That's well, you know what that makes me think actually. That's a good I'm glad you brought that up, that whole point because that kind of makes me think of it like this a little bit, right? The movies or no, the manga is character driven, right? It's character and world driven, whereas the movies are plot driven. You see what I'm saying? The movies rely on the plot, not the characters. It's there to support the plot. It's there to support the movie, but it's not there because it has to. It should be, but it's not, you know? And the manga is driven by characters because it's not, there is no time barrier, you know? You read it at your own pace, you absorb these things at your own speed, you know? Not to say there isn't pacing in comics, there absolutely is, because the quicker you want to turn that page, you know, the way that a page is set out, all of these things play into the pacing of a comic. But Berserk isn't limited to Berserk the manga is not limited to a 2 hour runtime, you know, or a 1.5 hour runtime. It can delve into these things. It can stay on characters and ideas for long amounts of time if it wants to, and that it's very character driven, so it does. Whereas the movies are not so much like that. And it also kind of makes the third act, we'll call it the third act, the third movie, I guess, is it makes it come off a little bit like, I don't know, a little bit forced, I think, when it's really not. It's foreshadowed heavily in the manga, but in the movie it's not as afforded as well.
Yeah. It, what what do I want to say? Part 3 kind of brings it back to like the more character, like, okay, let's focus more on the characters than the battle. And that's kind of what I like about it. It's more character driven. In the first one, part 1 or arc 1 is definitely character driven because that's where you learn about all these characters. There's not a lot of fighting. I think is it the arc 2? Is that when Guts is like known as the 100-man killer, like he can kill 100 men? Is that the one where it is?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's where. Well, the end of the first. No, no. Well, I don't remember. Let me think about the order in which this happened. Because at the end, the first movie ended around the time he killed Adonis, and then heard Griffith's speech. So, I think, yeah, I'm pretty sure. No, no, no. It definitely did happen in the second movie. It definitely did, because that's when he fell off the cliff with Casca.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and then they have that little relation. Is that when they have the relationship?
No, actually, that happens later.
Okay.
That happens later. That happens in the third movie.
There's just so much to talk about in this movie. I find it funny, like a comic relief thing, but I don't think it was supposed to be funny. But when Casca tries to jump off the cliff the second time, I just really find it funny that Guts is like, "We're keeping you away from cliffs. No more cliffs."
Yeah, he's like, "You cannot go near fucking cliffs again." Yeah.
It's like, "You're gonna drag me down again with you."
Yeah. That whole part, man. That whole part was really, for me, it was that entire part in the manga is one of my favorite parts. Because they cut out like I said, they cut out a huge part there where Guts and Casca have sex, and you should really like it just as a standalone chapter. I think it's worth reading. Probably the best chapters in Berserk, to be completely honest. It's like so beautiful, but they cut out this entire part where Guts like literally and symbolically opens himself up to Casca, you know. Like it's like they're having sex, yeah. But they're also both these are both people who are really vulnerable, you know. And so they're opening up to each other like literally, you know, physically and also emotionally. And then there's a second part of the sex scene where where Guts starts choking Casca because he's like having like a panic attack. He starts choking her because he thinks of himself. Like I said, he was sexually assaulted as a kid. He starts to see himself in Casca, you know, as someone who is being subdued. You know, so it makes him feel like he's a monster or something. And so he kind of sees himself harming her, and he starts like to choke her. And he's afraid. You can see the fear in his eyes, you know. And she kind of just she touches him, and she's like, "It's okay, you know. You don't have to be afraid. You don't have to be, you know. You don't have to let your past define you, you know." and it's very, very beautiful. And every time I read it, it makes me cry because it kind of shows a side of like I don't know of like male sexuality that you don't really see talked about a lot.
Yeah, most of the male like idea is like, okay, let's not show
Oops,
emotions.
sorry,
Let's
I have
not.
to connect my headphones again. I think.
Okay. Um. Let me just like what is it? I'm trying to think about how I want to put this. Can you hear me now? Are you?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Did you hear what I said or no? Probably not.
Were you talking while reconnecting your headphones?
No.
Oh, no, then I heard you. I heard everything, and then you said
Okay, so
you had to reconnect your headphones. Well, I think a lot of like the male idea is like we shouldn't show emotions and stuff, but Guts shows emotions during the golden age compared to like the rest of the story.
mm,
You can see some emotion between them, but he tries not to show it. And I think like that's wrong. That's I think just we're human. We should show our emotions. We should
yeah,
we should try to keep some sort of control of them, like especially like anger. We don't want to lose control of our anger. But it's okay to show emotion. It's natural. It's human. And I think that's kind of what Guts during the Golden Age, Guts kind of knows sort of that, but he still tries to keep that male identity kind of in, or that stereotype of
right.
let's keep my emotions in because I'm a guy, and that's not how
Mm,
we should do. Another thing I wanted to touch on real quick was I don't think the like when is it Kakasa when she tries to commit suicide and
Casca.
Cask. Why am I? I think I'm mixing it up with
With Mikasa
yeah, Mikasa from
from Attack on
Attack on
Titan.
Titan, because I was watching a couple episodes of that. And is it Kakasa? Kakasa, not Mikasa. Mikasa.
Yes,
Mikasa.
Mikasa.
Mikasa. It's
Mikasa. You could say it.
Mikasa. Mikasa. Sorry.
It's Mikasa.
Uh, yeah. I don't think it was deserved, her little suicide thing, because it kind of seems just out of nowhere, like her just jumping off a cliff, and then she does it
Mm,
again, and it seems a little bit forced, like forcing that drama onto the story. I don't think it was
mm.
deserved. It just comes out of
Okay,
nowhere.
yeah, I agree. I agree. I agree. In the movie only. I agree in the movie only because first time she falls off. Okay, first time she did not jump, she fell. Um, Second time in the movie, she tried to fall. And the thing is, like I said, this is a victim of cutting stuff out from the manga because in the manga it very clearly shows that Casca has been in a depressive episode in the whole year that Griffith has been tortured. She's had to lead this band of mercenaries as fugitives from one of the most powerful kingdoms in the land for a whole year. She has no knowledge of either of the people that she loves the most being alive. She doesn't know what's happening with Griffith. She's stressed out. She's had her wits end, and at the very end of it, Guts comes back and says, "Hey, I want to be back now," you know. And it's like to her, it's like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" It's like you're coming back now after you left. She sees it as his fault, you know. She's stressed out. She's had enough, and she's like, "I can't do it anymore," you know. They cut that out. They cut that important character moment out. In the manga, it's very clear that she's having a depressive episode and she's weighed down by her stress and she just wants to let go of it all, which is what she tries to do when she tries to kill herself, you know. And like we read on that post that we had just read from Walter on Reddit, like he says, it's cashing out emotional checks it can't afford. This is one of those instances where in the movie it doesn't really pay off because it seems forced because the movie expects you to be a Berserk fan who already knows what happens, and already knows why, you know.
Yeah. I just think I did it. I didn't know the. I think I missed the part where she kind of falls off the cliff instead of. I thought she just jumped off. I think she just gave in and just was like, okay, I'm gonna die now, or whatever. After,
No, no.
but now yeah, they're in like a battle and then she falls off and then Guts goes and grabs her. Right? Is it like by her
Yeah,
scarf or something?
He's holding on to her by her scarf, right? Because she was on a cliff. The guy was fighting her, right? He was like fighting her, and she had like a fever, and she was on her period, so she was kind of like woozy, like she was kind of out of it, right? So he's kind of pushing her off this cliff, basically, and then Guts is like, "Oh, holy shit!" So he grabs her, right, to prevent her from falling. Um, but then he gets shot, which causes both of them to fall, basically. So she didn't jump that
Okay.
first time.
So I was mistaken on that one. I'm trying to think. Yeah, but that second one wasn't well deserved and seemed a bit forced. What is it? Yeah, I'm trying to think. I kind of covered a lot of the stuff we already that I was thinking about. I'm just trying to
Hmm.
think. Is there
Well,
anything else I needed to talk about? You can go.
well, I mean, we haven't addressed the eclipse yet.
Oh
Really,
yeah,
we haven't
that's a
addressed
big
any of
part.
that. Yeah. Um. So they cut. Unfortunately, once again, I know I sound like a broken fucking record, but they cut out a lot of the foreshadowing of the eclipse. They cut out a lot of um, causality. The idea of causality in Berserk. I think they mention it towards the end, but causality is a little bit like it's kind of like fate, but not exactly. You know, like it's like it's the idea of cause and effect. Um, a good parable for it, I guess, is like think of moonlight shining on a pond. Okay, think about it like that. Moonlight shining on a pond, and the pond is like existent. Okay, so the moonlight will always be shining on the pond so long as the water is there, right? People can make splashes in the water, but ultimately the reflection will always be the same. The reflection isn't changing. The splashes in the water are changing what the reflection looks like. That's kind of like causality. So it's kind of like things exist and things are fated to happen. Certain events are fated to happen. Certain things are everything is manipulated in a way to happen. But people also have free will. People can also choose their fate, you know. People can make decisions. It's not just like this is every little event has been planned out and fated to happen. You know, it's like fate, but instead of exact things, it's like fate, but in broad strokes. Basically, that's kind of what causality is. So it's kind of like in Berserk. Okay, this is a kind of a spoiler. And but there's a chapter that was actually removed from the manga. It's the only chapter that was removed from the canon of the manga because the author didn't want to give away too much. But in this chapter, he reveals that in the world of Berserk, mankind created God, not the other way around. Um, in Berserk, in the Berserk universe, humans needed an explanation. They needed a reason for all of their suffering. So they created this thing known as the idea of evil, which is what God is essentially. And its reasoning, its response to humankind is to dictate events, to dictate the way things happen by manipulating them and controlling them, basically. And that's causality, essentially. It's kind of a really vague idea, but you know, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Another idea I wanted to talk about was how it's um, Griffith suddenly likes Kakasa. Is it Kakasa?
It's Casca, Matt.
I'm all over
It's
the place,
Matt.
man.
It's Casca. It's Casca. Casca.
Casca. When Casca's helping Griffith after he's been tortured for those 6 months, and he can't use anything, and then he kind of forces himself on her.
Mhm.
Uh, I feel like I don't feel like that was super deserved either, but it's a little touched on beforehand how Casca has like really likes Griffith and wants to have a relationship with him, but he's not into him, or he's not into her, um,
Right.
and then suddenly he's into her because he
Mm.
has no hope. He's
You're
like,
misinterpreting.
is that
You're
am I?
misinterpreting. Yeah, you are. That was not okay. So we all know Griffith is a condescending, manipulative person, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So the love triangle is between Guts, Griffith, and Casca. Okay, Casca loves Griffith. Griffith loves Guts. Guts loves Casca. Okay, so Guts comes back. Griffith is disabled, right? He hears Guts and Casca talking,
Oh.
and he hears that Guts is going to leave again, and he feels the need to spite Guts. He feels the need to lash out in anger, so he does that to Casca. Does that make
Okay,
sense?
yeah, I was misinterpreting that. So,
Yeah.
yeah, now thinking about it, he does say like the only friend I could have. Griffith says this. The only friend I could have is someone who is equal to me, and Guts is the most equal to Griffith. Like considering like how powerful they are. They're like
Actually, you're kind of
equals.
misinterpreting that too,
I
a little bit.
might be misinterpreting
Yeah,
a lot, but
because well, you probably it's okay. It's okay.
well,
It's
this
there.
was made for
It's
fans.
meant to be open ended. Yeah, but it's also well, you're not entirely wrong, right? Because it's meant to be open ended a little bit. It's just that I've read it and seen it so much that I kind of get what it's meant to be a little bit. You know, like like. So basically, Guts. Okay, think of it like this. To Griffith, what is a friend is someone who's an equal and someone who has a dream and an ambition equal to his own, right? But Guts exists subservient to Griffith. So, sorry. Guts and Griffith have like a brotherhood almost, you know? Um but when Guts hears Griffith say this, he thinks, I'm not doing anything for myself. I'm just serving Griffith, and therefore I'm not an equal to Griffith, and therefore I'm not Griffith's friend, and I'm not his equal, you know? Um, so Griffith saying that leads to Guts's reaction of leaving the Band of the Hawk and becoming, following his own dream, which the movie cuts this out also. But when after that sword fight, right? That sword fight is a direct consequence of Guts deciding that he needs to be an equal to Griffith, that he has his own dream, right? So Guts leaves. Griffith cannot cope with losing the one person that he cared about more than he doesn't see Guts as an equal. He sees Guts as a possession. You know, he sees Guts as something to be owned or something that he cares about, but that he owns. He doesn't really see him as an equal. So when Guts leaves, it's like Guts leaving kind of an abusive or manipulative relationship in a way, right? That's what it's symbolic of. And so to cope with this, Griffith makes a mistake and he jumps ahead of his plan and sleeps with the princess, which causes him to get tortured. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So Guts actually ends up. Now this is where it gets really crazy, Matt. This is where it gets really fucking crazy. This is where like the thematic levels line up like astronomically. Okay. So you know how in the beginning of Berserk, the manga, Guts is slaying demons, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's like his thing. That's what he's doing. He's like immersing himself in this hatred post-eclipse. That is what became of his dream. Guts's dream, Guts's ambition that would make him equal to Griffith ended up becoming his goal to kill Griffith.
Okay.
You see that?
Yeah. Yeah, I do.
You see what I'm saying? That's kind of the wraparound. That's kind of the thematic, circle.
So is Berserk kind of like a revenge story? Is it like all of
It's
revenge?
actually no. So this part of the story is just the beginning. This arc is just the beginning. Guts. It's actually an anti-revenge story. Believe it or not. It's about letting go of revenge. It's about moving on, living for the future instead of staying immersed in the past. For example, after the eclipse, after this happens to Casca and under the Band of the Hawk, Casca is basically locked away. She's gone insane, right? She doesn't know who anyone is. Incoherent. Her mind's been broken. So she's locked away. And Guts decides to leave her. He doesn't decide to stay with her. He decides to leave her to go on a meaningless, futile hunt to kill apostles and to kill Griffith, which he will never do. Right? It's something we've seen. we've seen how powerful he is now, right? So it's impossible. But he goes on it anyway because he's trying to selfishly indulge in his negative emotions. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So he leaves Casca behind, and she gets lost eventually. She escapes the prison that she's put in, and Guts realizes that him living for revenge, him existing to kill people, in doing that, he has let go of the one thing that he had that was precious to him. You know, this is a common theme throughout Berserk, is where Guts will he'll leave, or he'll accidentally mess up something or be a victim of something that caused that, it's like he always sees these things after it's too late. He's left the Band of the Hawk. He wants to come back once it's too late, once everything's destroyed. He wants to go hunt demons and kill Griffith, right? But it's futile. He can't. That's kind of the point. So it's about forgetting about revenge. And although the Band of the Hawk never comes back, Guts actually is able to make more friends and more allies, and move on into the future and find a meaning in life.
Yeah. I'm glad I had you here because I always thought Berserk was kind of a revenge story, but I can see where you're going, what you're talking about. Yeah. So, yeah, I did not know that. I've only read a couple of them, so maybe if I read more and kind of was a little more focused on the series as a whole, I might be able to look for those significant details. Yeah. Did you have anything else you wanted to talk about? Like your feelings on this movie?
Yeah, actually, I wanted to talk about the scene where Guts is running. That is probably my favorite scene in the whole movie, at least the third movie, where he's running and he's thinking about all of his memories with the Band of the Hawk, and he's like screaming out in anger. What did you think about that scene?
I thought it was okay. It could be looked over by someone who's not like super into anime or manga. I kind of looked over it a little bit, but I think it was okay. I don't think it was absolutely great because there are some relationships that are really close together in the Band of the Hawk, such as Kakasa, right? It's Kakasa.
Casca. All right, Kakasa.
Casca.
God damn it.
Casca. I'm gonna keep messing that up. I know it. Casca.
Yeah, I don't know how.
Well, I'm thinking.
All right. Okay. Anyway,
I really want to watch some Attack on Titan after this. I don't know. That's probably why.
Well, I mean,
Casca. Okay. So Casca and Guts' relationship is really well done, in Griffiths and Guts, but some of the other characters in the group are not as well developed or known. I don't think. One of the characters, who is it? The one that's always like complaining about Guts. Who is that?
Corcus.
Yeah, I don't know any of the other characters' names. I barely know Casca's. I got it. Casca's.
You did get it.
Yeah, but I don't think they're as well developed as these characters. But as some of the like Casca's character, Griffith's, Guts' character, they're not as well developed. So I feel like they don't matter as much. They probably matter a lot in the manga because you can focus more on the story between them. They just wanted to focus on the main trio.
Yeah.
So.
Certainly. The Corcus is interesting. I think that there are a lot of people who are happy that Corcus died, and I really don't understand that.
I don't
because
like him as
it's
a
like,
character, but
I
like
think that Corcus is necessary. Like, okay, let me explain it like this. Well, can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, so Corcus is necessary because he represents someone who is critical of Guts. He's critical of Guts, but just like any other person, he also has his own dreams and hopes and goals. He's a person too, just like any other of them. So when he dies, Corcus is interesting because he accepts his fate in a way, in a really sad way. He accepts his fate um, as a sacrifice. He sees this woman. By the way, do you remember the first page of the manga where it shows Guts having sex with that demon and then killing her?
Yep.
Okay, that demon. This is just how much the detail is in the manga, right? There's so many tiny details that are remembered, but this is just one example. So that demon, that first page where Guts is killing that demon, that is the demon that killed Corcus.
Oh.
And you don't even know until we get to the end. A lot of the demons you see in the eclipse are demons that like, you see Guts killing them at different points in the story, and you don't really know why, right? But then you see that these are the demons that directly killed the people he cares about. You know, like some of them are. Um, yeah, I think ultimately, well, I think that it's like a poor. I think it's a bad adaptation of Berserk. I genuinely think it's a bad adaptation of Berserk, but I think it works okay as a movie. I think it works well as a movie. You know, it's a good watch. But like I said, fortunately, it's not easy to just get people into Berserk as manga. It's not easy to just be like, read this. Like, you have to read this because I can't even tell you how good it is, which is what everyone who's read it is like, you know. It's like, Berserk is this good, you have to read it. But you can't, it's not easy to convince someone to read it, so you have to have a stepping stone, and your only options really are the 1997 anime or the movies. I probably would have, I personally, even as big as a fan as I am, I started off with the 1997 anime. That's what made me like it. So, I don't know. But even then, the manga is just so much better that it's like, I can't even explain it. But, yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree on you with the manga. Usually the manga gives a little more detail, especially with these movies. So do you have anything else you want to talk about, or any main ideas?
Yeah,
We could talk about this all day, I know.
yeah, we could. I guess maybe we should go on to ratings.
Okay.
What the rating should be.
Do you want to start, or do you want me to start?
Um, I kind of want to hear your opinion first.
I was gonna say the exact same thing. I kind of want to hear yours because you're a big fan of Berserk. But I'll go ahead and give mine. I'll give mine because I don't know as much about Berserk, so this is a good movie. Wait, real quick before we get into the ratings, can we talk about the end credit scene? Because I forgot
before
about
we get into the ratings, what?
Can we talk about the end credit scene? Like right after the credits, they have the.
Oh yeah.
Because that was something I missed. I forgot all about that. Ty had said, wait till after the credits and then finish it because there's a big detail, and that's where you kind of learn that this is a prequel.
Mm-hmm.
Which I would not have guessed if I didn't have that. So yeah, it's pretty. I really like that. The ending, like the after the credits, like that little scene, kind of just brings it all together, sort of. Did you like?
Yeah. It connects. It connects the. I like it. Yeah. It connects the. It connects the Golden Age with the Black Swordsman arc. Like I said. Well, I guess this is something I could cover too before we go into ratings. Is the arcs of Berserk. Because there are 5 major arcs, and the Golden Age is only one, and they're all very good. They're all as good as Golden Age, in my opinion. They're all just as good, which is hard to believe considering the immense quality of this arc in itself as its own story. But they're literally all this good. So, you know, if that isn't a testament of Berserk's quality, I don't know what is. But, well, actually, I lied. The first arc of Berserk is easily the weakest. The Black Swordsman arc is easily the weakest. Just because it deliberately withholds context from you. You know? It deliberately makes you think that it's one-dimensional. So it's a perfect start to the series. It baits and switches you, you know? It gives you the bait and switch. It makes you think it's just a simple series and then kind of goes into this really amazing storyline. but in and of itself, it's not nearly as good as the other arcs. So, chronologically speaking, and talking about in the order that the story actually happens, we have the Golden Age, which is this arc, Black Swordsman, which is the first arc we see. Then we have Conviction arc, which is about religion and kind of mob mentality and like dark emotions, turning dark, using dark kind of more hidden emotions as like a fuel for, I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain. But yeah, you have Conviction, and then you have Falcon of the Millennium Empire arc, which is a reference to Star Wars. It is a reference to Star Wars. Um, and then you have Fantasia. And the thing about Berserk is actually it goes from being a dark fantasy to a medieval fantasy to a dark fantasy again to a high fantasy. So it's really cool. But anyway, yeah, I guess that's just what I wanted to say. But go ahead and give your rating, Matt, if you would.
Uh, well, I really enjoyed it. I didn't enjoy the second one as much. So do we want to rate them on like the arcs, like which arc is the best, or rate it 1 out of 10 for each arc, or
I would say
because I
I
think
would say we could do.
I think they're a
Go
combination of
ahead.
them, but I feel like each one deserves their own rating because it's like their own separate movie. It's like a franchise, kind of. Like each movie is separate, but
Right.
they're kind of like Back to the Future, for instance. You're meant to watch all the Back to the Future's movies
Hmm.
back to back because they're all connected, and then they start right at where they stop. So I think I want to rate them all individually. Is that kind of how you want to do it?
Okay.
Okay. So
I can do it both ways. I had a different idea, but I can do it that way too.
okay. Do whatever. Just explain how you're gonna rate it. I'm gonna rate them all individually because I believe that that's the way I
Okay.
would do it. Uh, the first one I'd give probably an 8. The second one I'd give maybe a 4 or 5. It's really low. It's
Hmm.
just it kind of bores you. It just uh
Yeah.
it's slow.
The second half is better. The second half is better, but the first half is lackluster, especially.
Yeah, and then I'd give the last part 3 a 9 because I really like how it mixes the action. It finds the middle ground where it's focused on
Yeah.
the action but also the characters. It's probably the best out of the whole series, and it's a good ending, and then it's a good beginning and a good introduction to the manga. So it's supposed to like get you onto the manga, and it kind of has. It kind of makes me interested in reading the series again, or start the series
Hmm.
again, get back into it. But
Well, you definitely should. You definitely should.
I'd give the first one an 8, second one a 4 or 5. I don't know. 4.5 is a good middle. And then I'll give the third one a 9 because that's just
Okay.
it's just really good. I really like part arc 3. So
Hmm. Okay, that's fair enough. So what about the series as a whole? Would you say like if you like the whole all three movies as one rating? What would you say it evens out to?
I'd say I'd say it. I I don't know. Part 2 definitely brings it down, but I don't want to say that it brings it down too much because it kind of fills in the middle ground, but it's still a little boring. Um, I'd say maybe a
Yeah.
7.5 and 8 maybe. I don't want to give it like a straight up 9 because I think even though part 1 and part 3 are really good, the second part, the middle kind of just brings it down. So I'd give it maybe
Yeah.
7 and 8, somewhere around there.
Okay. Understandable. Understandable. Um, yeah. So I guess I'll go through. I'll do it a couple different ways. I know it's kind of dumb to give like 15 different ratings, but I have different. Yeah, I know. I
I
have different
understand.
ideas. I have
It's
different ideas on how I like this
it's
movie.
sort of difficult to decide how you want to rate it and make sure the audience in the chat is
Yeah.
really happy with it, uh, while also trying not
I mean,
to.
I don't care about what the audience thinks, really.
Yeah,
Like, if I don't like it, I don't like it, and that's just how it is. But I am also a huge fan of Berserk. I have a tattoo of it. I plan to get more, because it's just my favorite thing ever. But I don't think anything is immune to criticism. As much as I think that Berserk, the manga, is the best story I've ever read, and I read a lot, not just manga. I read novels. I read lots of classic literature. That's something I'm really into. I still love Berserk the most out of all of those. As much as I love those, I think everything has flaws. Now, if we're talking about Berserk the manga itself, I'm giving it a 10, no question. Maybe the only 10 I could think of. There might be an exception there. There are a couple other manga that I think come close to a 10, but Berserk the manga is a 10 for me. It's a 10. It is the definitive 10. It is the manga you have to read before you die, in my opinion. Now, for the movies, for the shit we're actually talking about, the first movie, I think is it's good. I'd say I like it. I don't like the CG animation. It really fucks with me. And it's not good CG. It's bad CG, and it really messes with me.
It gets better by part 3.
Yeah, by part 3 they have it pretty well sorted out. I think there's still a little bit of willy nilly badness, but it's whatever. But so God, this is so hard. Okay, so I guess this will be my rating, not as a Berserk fan, as a movie goer, as a cinema enjoyer. I'll give the first one a 7. I'll give the second one, as a moviegoer enjoyer, a 6. And I'll give the third one a 9. So the series as a whole, I think, for me, evens out to probably about the same as you. I think a 7.5.
Yeah.
As like in terms of just the movies, no Berserk relation. I give it a 7.5. Like it's really good. It's really good on their own in a way. They suffer from some things, but I think they can stand on their own as entertainment. And then there's my rating as a Berserk fan. And as a Berserk fan, I do not like these movies as a Berserk fan. I think the direction falls on all of the wrong story beats, or at least most of the wrong story beats. I think they cut out way too much from the story. I think they cut out some of the most crucial and important parts of the entire series. I think they ruined a lot of the scenes that make Berserk so beautiful. And so I'm going to say this trilogy as a whole, as a Berserk fan, is a 4 for me. A solid 4.
Why so?
That's all I can really say about it. I like it as.
Is it
Go
just
ahead.
because? Is it just because it cuts out a lot, or is it? Are there specific?
It's not just because it cuts out a lot. There are specific scenes that I think it handles very poorly. And I think it's not just that it cuts things out, it's just that it really fails at making you... It really fails at capturing the essence of Berserk as a whole. I think the third movie is actually not that bad about it. I think the third movie redeems itself as an adaptation of Berserk, even though it cuts out, once again, it cuts out a lot of stuff. But it's a little bit better, especially in the eclipse and around the time of the eclipse. It's better about the characters,
Yeah.
But they moved things around. They kind of put things where they didn't belong, and they kind of, they took out a lot of context, and it's just a poor adaptation of Berserk in general. It's not a bad thing to get people into the manga, because with the amount of stuff they cut out, right? If you really like these movies and you read Berserk, there's no way that you won't like the manga more, because the manga is this, and the manga is this except with no issues. That's what the manga is. The manga is these movies except better in every single way. That's what it is. So, it's not it's not a bad thing to get people into Berserk, I don't think. But yeah, so it's going to be a 4 for me as a Berserk fan, I think.
Okay. Before we get into recommendations, let's just give that little talk about movies are subjective. Our reviews don't really matter. Take them with a grain of salt, because you should review movies yourself. These are available on Netflix.
If you enjoy it,
so
yeah,
watch them.
watch them by all means. watch them. If you're not a super fan of Berserk, and care about a lot of this stuff, and you don't know about what Berserk is, then I think it's not a bad thing to watch. I think that they're solid movies on their own. I don't think they did bad work on it. Uh, I think if you just want to watch some good movies, I think they're pretty good. But it's kind of like I probably sound like some kind of fucking like pastor or something that's like has a problem with the fucking Bible movie adaptation or some shit like that. But if you're a Berserk fan, you're gonna have a completely different experience with these movies. If you're a Berserk fan, you'll probably come out liking them, but kind of disturbed at how much they took out, because it really is an appalling amount that they took out and edited and changed and focused on the wrong parts. Um, but yeah.
Yeah, we all have things we're passionate about. Just wait till we get to the Assassin's Creed movie. That's gonna kill me.
Oh
Uh,
god.
that's gonna straight up kill me. I love Assassin's Creed, but the movie absolutely terrible. Just wait till we get to that. But uh, overall, movies are subjective. You're the only reviewer that can review it truly for yourself. That's kind of just the gist. That's what we say in every movie. Except Gretel and Hansel was an exception, but
It's objectively bad.
it's objectively bad.
No.
But
Yeah.
let's get into recommendations. You want to go ahead and recommend your movie or TV show or whatever?
Yeah, sure. I guess. Well, okay. So I have an anime recommendation I want to do for the next time it's my episode, but um, I'll just save that because I want to recommend that whenever that time
Okay.
comes. Um, in terms of a thing to watch, like a recommendation, I've been watching Twin Peaks. I started watching it, and it's so good. It's so good. Like, it's funny too. It's like so perfectly written. Like, okay, not perfectly, but it's so well written. Like, and characters act so corny a lot of the time, and you can tell it's intentional. It's almost like breaking the fourth wall. It's just such a good series. Like, watch Twin Peaks, please. Just anyone listening, if you haven't seen Twin Peaks and you like a good narrative storytelling, watch Twin Peaks for the love of God, please. That's my recommendation.
Yeah, I've seen a little bit of Twin Peaks. I couldn't get into it uh, as much, but I think I might retry it at some point, just because I think I've started watching a lot more stuff, and I might have a little bit of a better idea of how to follow it. But
Yeah.
my recommendation, which is also my pick for next week's podcast, which will be premiered on YouTube, not on Twitch, because we will be out of town, or some of us will be out of town. We will not. It will be pre-recorded premiere. You guys can still talk to each other about it while the podcast is going. I might even be watching it. I might be in the chat with you guys. But it will be at Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the usual time. So next week's episode will be like an anime, sort of. Would you say it was an anime? It's called Mary and the Witch's Flower. It's had some help from the Studio Ghibli people who that made those movies, and I think it's definitely lighthearted compared to what we've watched this week. So it's gonna be a good change. I think it's gonna be okay. But Mary and the Witch's Flower, it's on Netflix. Go ahead, watch it before next week, and remember, it's gonna premiere on YouTube. YouTube.com/InsaneGorillas. No space, two Z's. Similar to my Twitch name, like I said earlier. But that's, I think, all. Do you have anything else you want to say, Ty?
Yeah. One last thing. Read Berserk if you haven't read Berserk. That goes for you too, Matt. I will send you the link if I have to. I'm telling you right now, you will not regret it. Anyone who hasn't read Berserk, you need to read it. Okay. I don't care if you don't like anime or manga. This transcends that as entirely. So read it, please.
Okay. I'll definitely try.
Also, I think my headphones cut out
Okay.
again. Hold on.
Let's do that. Make sure to watch next week. Just remember, it's on YouTube next week. we might also be doing that in the future when
Okay.
I'm not around.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Okay.
Did you hear what I said?
No. What did you say?
Oh, okay. What? So, did you not hear what I said about read Berserk?
Yeah, I heard read Berserk. Yeah. Okay.
Did I cut out again?
No, you did not. You did not. Am I cutting out for you?
I think I cut out again. 1
okay.
second.
Okay, I just want to say the ending thing. He keeps cutting out. Hey, you hear that car? That's Ty. Go find him in your local
Okay, it's kind of
library parking lot.
It's kind of mind blowing how my audio is cutting out so much right now.
Okay.
Um,
I'm fine. You're fine with me. I can hear everything. Can you hear me?
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Let's finish the podcast like we usually do. Say bye, Ty.
All right. See you later. Talk to you later.
So enthusiastic.
Yeah.
Bye.